balance sheet, right? Some people say, why does this have to be negative? Could be, sorry, excuse me. Why does this have to be positive? Could be negative. We have example. Why did the argument ever come out? Paul de Groves pushed it in a completely, I think, instrumental way, in a very bad moment, and it's been an incredibly bad choice. When academics get into politics and turn around theory and models and data to adapt them to the political circumstances and do that in a manipulative way to win a political argument, they do a dramatic disservice to themselves and the profession. Why? Because then the lay public doesn't understand the subtleties of what's being done and the contingent nature of the argument and the fact that the argument is partial and somewhat adjusted to the debate and make it into a rule. So at the time in which the Central Bank of Europe was debating if it were or it were not the case to do a European version of the quantitative easing that the Fed did. One concern, in my opinion actually, the concern was groundless in the sense that it was excessively cautious, but it was logically consistent, was, all right, what we're going to do is to buy distressed loans, distressed securities, things that is not tradable from this and the other banks. At the time, mostly Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Irish banks, okay? And we're gonna give them cash reserves. And those reserves are good. They're a promise that you'll pay 100 euros, okay? It's true, those securities you're purchasing, that you purchase at a market value, say, of 70, with a face value of 100, may eventually recover and go up. And so, you know, you buy them, the initial operation. So let's see what these people had in mind, right? So the initial operation is, you know, you create 70 here and 70 here, right? And if a period later this goes to 80, you've actually done well because now your equities are plus 10. But if that's Italian non-performing loan, and they go sour, then a period later, this goes to 60, right? And your equities go to minus 10, right? So what is the criticism said? Well, when that's the case, after a year or two, the member banks, so the ECB, once that loss and that negative capital become permanent, will have to replenish it, which means they will have to contribute from the taxpayer of each country in proportion new capital. And so what you're doing by doing this is charging the different taxpayer across countries in Europe proportional to their stake in the European Central Bank to invest in the risky securities of some countries. And this is not good. Okay? Now, as the experience of the Fed shows, and I think also as the experience of the ECB shows, this was logically correct, but de facto an exaggeration.
So this
because,
so this is actually what the capital,
if you look at the debate,
capital injection happened in the US.
No. So this was the debate in Europe about doing or not doing what was eventually called the outright market transaction, whatever it's OTM, OMT, I never remember. Okay, you know, QE European version. In the United States, the debate was a lot quicker. The decisions to be taken a lot quicker, and we all agreed. I mean, I was actually at the time involved a little bit. That the assets that were to be purchased were so underpriced, markets were so dry, they just didn't make any sense that that stuff would have been all defaulted. And therefore, given that the Fed was not going to buy a selected piece here and there that they could have got bad luck, so to speak, but was going to buy trillions. And so the law large number was on our side, so just go buy, either the American economy collapse, at which point who cares that we're making a few losses, right? If the whole American economy really collapsed, the fact that the Fed has negative capital is the least of the problems. This was actually a very good argument that someone that I will not mention gave. He says, listen guys, there's only one way that after we bought 2 trillions, or 1.5 trillion of stuff, we lose on all this because we're buying everything. And so if we lose on this, it's because we have got something even worse than the Great Depression. At that point, we shouldn't be worried. If unemployment goes 40%, people will not claim, oh, you guys have lost, 100 billion because you invested poorly. Everybody has invested poorly. So we shouldn't. It was a situation in which you would have made a mistake only when the mistake was irrelevant. And so it was very easy to decide to go in. And I think it was very easy. In fact, the Fed has made a truckload of money. Because it was clear. The technical assessment at that point in 2009-10 was what? 2.8, 2.9, and then 2.10, was the fact that all these securities are so distressed and so trading at a very low number. Is it really because all these investments are wrong? Or is it just fear and lack of liquidity? And if it is a lack of liquidity, shouldn't we just do the lender of last resort in a more efficient way, not just with the banking system, but with everybody? With the whole financial system. That was the decision. If you translate it, that was, instead of just lending at the discount window the old way to banks, the world has changed. Most of the stuff is in securities. We have to go buy the securities directly. And Fed has been making profits by the wazoo on their trading for years now. Right? So in Europe, the initial reaction was like that. On this, so people like to find arguments to criticize the Germans these days. Yes, I'll tell you. The hypocrisy of the Germans economists, or some of the hypocrisy, is in this. Because so if they want to accuse them, I don't think it's very useful, but if you want to accuse them of something, you can accuse them of hypocrisy on this. Because they had no concern in 2009 when also German and Irish and French and Dutch banks, and Spanish, and the Italians were also, only the Italian bankers didn't want to admit they were, because I wrote a book that says, we're in the same situation, just you're not saying it. You're just hiding it, pretending that you have loans that are performing when they're not. In the case of Deutsche Bank, it's very easy. They're marking to market their derivatives, and their derivatives are gone to hell. So you can't hide that. Instead, you're pretending that your loan to all these small companies are actually performing, and it's not. Okay, you are as broke as they are. You're just hiding it. But anyway, point is, a bunch of banks, mostly north, but including Spain and Ireland, and said, ooh, right, ooh. And the reaction of the European Central Bank and local central bank was, oh, let's do like the Fed. Give me the asset, right? But if you look, there's a big spike there, and then it goes down, and then it starts again, okay? And you could have used the same argument here, right? Why are you buying all these assets? Why are you recapitalizing these banks? Maybe that's all bad loans. It could get even worse. Instead, the argument came up only later when Draghi and other, at the end of during 12, after the famous, it will be enough, started to push for doing this. And at that point, the objection was the one I summarized. I think the proper reaction should have been, shut up. We did it 3 years ago. The Fed has done, if you do it right, if we buy across the border, uniformly, without pretending to be investment bankers, but just doing a lender of last resort, we just buy everything. We buy the market, basically. The law large number is on our side, and again, the argument that applied to the United States, should we make losses? It's because the whole American economy has collapsed, so it's not really relevant. Would apply here. Should we make losses? It's because the whole European economy has collapsed, and at that point, we're really not going to be concerned. Okay? In my opinion, that's the end of the argument. Instead, the discussion went on about, can a central bank operate with negative capital? Obviously, that goes to the core of monetary theory, if you think, right? Because Can it operate with money, negative capital? Sure. In fact, in the model I use, my central bank never has capital. Central bank can easily do this. That's helicopter money. That's the central bank of helicopter money. Right? This is something, actually, I never put in writing, if you start thinking from these simple models, okay? This is the central bank in the helicopter money economy. Is that good? Is that bad? Depends. Depends what you're doing with that 70. Depends who has it. Right? Because they can easily make it this. Right? I'm not sure I read the same. Okay? No problem. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, it depends what that thing is doing out there. Is it just stuff in the pocket of the guys? Stuff that people use only for purchasing, consumption, and maybe investment goods? If that's the only use, that's going to change prices for sure. They can tell me everything they want about idle capacity, but if I multiply monetary supply by 10, 100, or 1,000, prices are going to go up sooner or later by 10, 100, or 1,000. In that sense, that money supply. Okay? If this happens uniformly and predictably, everybody knows, it's actually not a big deal. I'm actually pretty sure that once inflation is generalized and you're a closed economy and it's uniform and everything grows at 250%, that's okay. It's just a pain in the neck to keep updating every number, right? But all you have to do is always calculate. Okay, I'm going out with Mario. I bought coffee to Mario the other day. Coffee was worth X. Wait, but now it's worth 3.2x. So if Mario wants to compensate and pay back, he doesn't have to spend X for me. He has to spend 3.2. That makes even friendship complicated. Okay? That's why price stability is good. Imagine with your girlfriend, right? You know, in these days of equality, I mean, you buy the thing, you want to be generous, she wants to compensate. And she compensates a year later and says, oh no, wait a second. My roses were in real value, look at the inflation rate over the last 12 months. It's 262%. My roses are worth a lot more of this ugly shirt you bought me. Okay, well, that's not going to make love very interesting. So I think inflation has social cost. But other than that, you can do that, right? But that's one hypothesis. The other view is the chartalist view. People like to take the chartalist view seriously. I do. So I have 100 of reserves, and I have bonds worth 100. In my view, maybe I'm wrong. What are these? Let me try something that I actually tried yesterday, again in Milan, with a bunch of people from financial markets, and they seem to get it. But I've never put it as a theoretical argument. I think it is a theoretical argument for a theory of money. Think of these two things sitting in the portfolio of the central bank. We're not going to do the break today, if you don't mind. We started late. I actually have, I cannot go on very long, so we just think of what this is. If you think of that, those are actually two government promises, both of them, right? If this is what we call money in the sense of high power money, reserves, right? The right that the banks have to use it to then issue loans to private sector is based on the fact that for some reason, which we have not yet explained, the private sector accepts this symbols token in exchange for real goods. All right? And they have a characteristic, these things, once they're used. As long as they sit there and the commercial banks do not, because remember, right, in front of this, you could have the commercial, this is the central bank, and these are the private bank. Let me use private, otherwise it becomes CB again, okay? Okay? The private banks, in front of these reserves, which are here, right? What could they have here?
Loans. They have their equity.
Remember, assets, liabilities. Assets, that's assets. A reserve is an asset for Banca Intesa. In front of the asset, Banca Intesa has deposit, your deposit. That's a liability, right? So it has deposit. And let me be magical, even as a capital. If that's the word, then that's it. There is no bank multiplier, nothing, notice, right? And there is essentially what? This deposit are depositierista, as they say in this country, right? Checking deposit, as they say in English. What does it mean checking? That I can check them, and you're forced to pay right away. They are a vista because I can say, no, money, give me the money. I want to use it, okay? No, you can't wait. I want money now, right? If you want to avoid to do the money now, you do corralito, which means you shut down the bank. I'll come with a bazooka, okay? It's a tiny thing. So, through the private bank, this branch of government is doing what? Is saying, you guys have 100 units here of something that gets you the power to go out and buy something. And you can grab it. And the guy cannot actually refuse. Right? It's legal tender. You cannot say, no, I don't serve you dinner, sir. No. I'll pay you serve dinner. Okay? So this, in some sense, is claiming current income. You understand? It's a strange thing of the government that says, yes, you can use this thing today to get current income. The guy gives you a service now. And in exchange for that, you can keep going, moving that $100 to keep getting service now. If you move it very quickly, in fact, you can buy the old GMP. So the thing rests on the idea that this thing doesn't move at infinite speed through the economy per unit of time, moves at a finite speed, and so allows the exchange of a certain size of GMP. All right, velocity is 3, so there is 300 GMP, the price is 1, okay? But it's a claim on current GMP. From the point of view of the bank, this is what? These are treasury bonds, payable in 1 year, promised 3% interest rate. They are claiming future GMP. You cannot go with the bond. People will keep asking in economics this question: why don't we use bond to purchase our cars? Why don't we buy? Why this legal figment? Right? That in order for me to buy my house that cost $500,000, I have to take my securities, sell them in the financial market, receives in exchange $500,000 in my checking account, which is a transfer of reserves, right? From one bank to another at the central bank. And then that reserves, I can go use it for the owner of the house to pay for the house. Why couldn't I just give him write off my securities? It's a legal thing. It's completely legal. There's nothing in the economy. Well, my pure point of view is that this legal thing has a sense. It's not true. It's not a figment. It's not artificial. It's not an inefficiency. It's a balancing mechanism because it says, no, this is a promise on future income. This is a promise on current income. This is a claim on current income. This is a claim on future income. Underlying this, there is a real economy. This is the common issuance. Remember, the government. The government is looking at the economy And a wise government says, current GMP is 300. Future GMP is X hundred. My promise is to people of payment in future GMP has to be proportional to future GMP. Because with that, I am guaranteeing that because I will extract taxes from future GMP, I will be able, with the taxes I extract from future GMP, to pay interest, and if needed, even to repay the debt. But as long as I'm able to guarantee that I'll pay interest, and I have a little bit of a buffer, people will be happy to keep lending to me. That's my guarantee. Right? What does it mean to issue? Remember, this what I'm giving to you is the Charter List of Institutions version, if you have read it, of Sargent and Wallace Monetarist Arithmetic.